The alarm screamed through the metal walls of Outpost Kira. Red lights flashed in every room and every hallway. Sergeant Jake Morrison woke up from his sleep and grabbed his rifle before his feet even touched the cold floor. "All soldiers to battle stations," a voice shouted through the speakers. "We are under attack. This is not a drill." Jake ran out of his room and saw other soldiers running in the same direction. He knew this day would come. Everyone knew. The Vectari had been watching this small human colony for months. Now they had finally decided to attack. Outpost Kira was a mining colony on a planet far from Earth. About 300 people lived there. Most of them were miners and engineers. Only 50 were soldiers. They were here to protect the colony, but no one thought they would have to fight a war. Jake reached the command center and found Lieutenant Megan Cole giving orders. She was young, but she was smart and brave. Her face was serious as she looked at the screens showing the battle outside. "How many ships?" Jake asked. 12 Vectari warships," Megan said, "and 1 royal carrier. Queen Zithara is here herself." Jake felt his stomach turn cold. Queen Zithara was the ruler of the Vectari Empire. She hated humans more than anything. She called them insects. She called them weak. She believed humans did not deserve to live in her galaxy. "Why would the Queen come here?" Jake asked. "We are just a small mining colony." "Maybe she wants to send a message," Megan said. "Maybe she wants to show the galaxy what happens to humans who live in Vectari space." The ground shook as bombs fell on the outpost. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere in the distance, Jake heard people screaming. "We cannot win this fight," Megan said quietly. "We need to get the civilians out. The escape shuttles can hold everyone if we move fast." Jake nodded. "I will take my squad to the east gate. We will hold them there, as long as we can." Megan grabbed his arm. "Jake, be careful. The Vectari are sending ground troops. Thousands of them." Jake smiled, but there was no happiness in it. "I know. Just get those people to the shuttles. That is all that matters." God. He gathered his squad of 8 soldiers and ran toward the east gate. The sky outside was filled with fire and smoke. Vectari dropships were landing everywhere, and alien soldiers were pouring out of them like water from a broken pipe. The Vectari were insectoid creatures. They had hard shells covering their bodies, 6 legs, and large black eyes that showed no emotion. They carried weapons that fired acid, and their claws could cut through metal. They were fast, strong, and they felt no fear. Jake and his squad reached the east gate just as the first wave of Vectari arrived. The soldiers took cover behind broken walls and started shooting. The sound of gunfire mixed with the screech of alien voices. "Hold the line!" Jake shouted. "Do not let them pass." The battle was terrible. For every Vectari that fell, 2 more took its place. Jake watched his soldiers fight with everything they had. They were brave, they were strong, but they were only human, and there were too many enemies. One by one, his squad members fell. Danny was hit by acid and died screaming. Sam was pulled into the alien swarm and disappeared. Lisa fought until her last bullet, then used her knife until a Vectari claw ended her life. Soon, only Jake was left. He stood alone at the gate, his rifle hot in his hands. Bodies lay around him, both human and Vectari. His uniform was torn and covered in blood. Some of it was his own. Behind him, he could hear the escape shuttles starting their engines. The civilians were almost safe. He just needed to hold a little longer. A shadow fell over him. Jake looked up and saw a massive Vectari transport land nearby. The doors opened, and out walked Queen Zithara herself. She was larger than the other Vectari, with a golden shell and eyes that burned like red fire. She wore armor made of some metal that Jake did not recognize. Behind her walked 100 of her best warriors. "A single human," the queen said. Her voice was cold and sharp, like broken glass. "Still fighting. How amusing." Jake raised his rifle and fired. The bullets hit the queen's armor but did nothing. She laughed, a terrible sound that made Jake's skin crawl. "Your weapons are useless against me, little creature," she said. Your species is weak, your colony is burning, your people are dying, and still you fight. Why? Because that is what humans do, Jake said. We fight. We never give up. The Queen tilted her head, as if she was looking at a strange animal in a cage. Interesting, but foolish. She raised one of her clawed hands and pointed at Jake. Her warriors moved forward, firing their acid weapons. Jake dodged and rolled, shooting back whenever he could. But there were too many of them. An explosion behind him destroyed the platform he was standing on. The metal broke apart, and Jake felt himself falling. Below him, he could see the mining pits, filled with molten rock and fire. The heat rushed up toward him like a hungry monster. The last thing he heard before the darkness took him was the Queen's voice. The human is dead, she said. Let his death be a message to all who oppose the Vectari Empire. Far above, the escape shuttles broke through the atmosphere and flew toward the stars. The civilians were safe. Megan Cole watched from a small window as the planet grew smaller behind them. She did not know if anyone else had survived. She did not know if Jake was alive or dead. But deep in her heart, she made a promise. She would come back. She would find out what happened. And if Jake was gone, she would make sure his sacrifice meant something. The Vectari had won the battle. But the war was far from over. Jake opened his eyes and saw only darkness. His whole body was burning with pain. He tried to move, but every small movement felt like fire running through his bones. He was alive. Somehow, he was alive. He remembered falling. He remembered the heat of the molten pits rushing toward him. He should be dead. But instead of landing in the fire, he had fallen into something else. A cooling vent, a metal shaft that carried cold air into the mining tunnels below. The fall had broken many things inside him. His left arm was destroyed below the elbow. Burns covered half his face and chest. Blood was everywhere. But his heart was still beating. His lungs were still breathing. And his mind was still working. Get up, he whispered to himself. It took him a long time to stand. The pain was so bad that he almost passed out many times. But he kept pushing himself. He kept moving. The darkness around him was complete. He could not see his hand in front of his face. He started walking, using the wall to guide him. He had no idea where he was going. He just knew that he had to keep moving. If he stopped, he would die. Hours passed. Maybe days. Jake lost track of time in the endless darkness. He found water dripping from the walls, and drank it, even though it tasted like metal and dirt. He found old food containers left by miners and ate whatever was inside, even though it was old and made him sick. His wounds were getting worse. The burns on his chest had become infected. His broken arm was turning black. He knew that if he did not find help soon, he would die slowly in these tunnels, and no one would ever know. Then, one day, he saw light. It was small and weak, just a tiny glow in the distance. But to Jake, it looked like the sun itself. He moved toward it as fast as his broken body could carry him. The light came from a small cave where a woman was sitting. She had a small fire burning and was eating something from a can. When she saw Jake stumble out of the darkness, she screamed and grabbed a metal pipe. "Stay back," she shouted. "I will hurt you." Jake tried to speak, but no words came out. He fell to the ground, too weak to stand anymore. The woman came closer, still holding the pipe. When she saw his uniform, her eyes went wide. "You are a soldier. A human soldier." Jake managed to nod. "My God," she said. "What happened to you?" Her name was Amy Lawson. She was a mining engineer who had been working deep in the tunnels when the attack started. The explosions had trapped her underground, and she had been living in these caves for weeks, waiting for rescue that never came. Amy looked at Jake's wounds and shook her head. "You should be dead. How are you still alive?" "I do not know," Jake whispered. "I just kept moving." Amy was not a doctor, But she knew enough to help. She used the fire to heat a piece of metal and pressed it against Jake's wounds to stop the bleeding. The pain was terrible. Jake screamed until his voice was gone. But when it was over, he was still alive. His left arm was too damaged to save. Amy told him this with tears in her eyes. "I have to remove it," she said. "If I do not, the infection will spread to your whole body." Jake nodded. He had already accepted this. "Do it. Now." "Jake, now." Amy found a sharp mining tool and did what had to be done. Jake bit down on a piece of leather and tried not to scream. The world went white with pain. And then he passed out. When he woke up, days had passed. His arm was gone below the elbow, wrapped in clean cloth that Amy had torn from her own clothes. The pain was still there, but it was different now. It was a pain he could live with. "You are strong," Amy said, sitting beside him. "Stronger than anyone I have ever met." Jake looked at the place where his arm used to be. "I do not feel strong." "Strong is not about how you feel," Amy said. "It is about what you do. And you survived something that should have killed you 10 times over." Over the next few weeks, Jake slowly recovered. Amy took care of him, feeding him, changing his bandages, and keeping him company in the darkness. She told him about her life, about her family back on Earth, about her dream of building a house by the ocean someday. Jake listened and said little. But inside his mind, something was growing. A fire that had nothing to do with his wounds. He kept thinking about the Queen, about her words, about the way she had laughed at him before he fell. "She thinks I am dead," he said one day. Amy looked at him. "Who?" "The Queen. Zithara. She watched me fall. She told her whole empire that I was dead." Amy nodded slowly. "So what?" Jake smiled for the first time since the attack. It was a small smile, but it was real. "So she is wrong. I am not dead. And one day, I am going to stand in front of her again. And I am going to show her what humans are really made of." Amy studied his face for a long moment. Then she smiled too. "I believe you," she said. "I do not know how, but I believe you." Jake asked Amy to help him build something. Using pieces of mining equipment, old metal, and wires, she created a simple prosthetic arm for him. It was not pretty. It could not move like a real arm, but it was strong, and it let him hold things and fight. When it was finished, Jake tested it by crushing a rock in its metal grip. "Not bad," he said. Amy laughed. "Not bad? I am an engineer, not a miracle worker. That is the best arm you are going to get in a cave." Jake looked at her with serious eyes. "Amy, I need to get back to the surface. I need to see what the Vectari are doing up there." Amy's smile faded. "I was afraid you would say that. It is dangerous. There are Vectari everywhere." "I know," Jake said. "But I cannot stay down here forever. There might be other survivors. There might be people who need help." Amy was quiet for a moment. Then she stood up and grabbed her tools. "Then, I am coming with you. Someone has to make sure you do not get killed again." Together, they started the long journey through the tunnels, heading toward the surface and whatever waited for them above. The tunnels seemed to go on forever. Jake and Amy walked for days through the darkness, following old mining maps that Amy had memorized years ago. Sometimes they heard Vectari patrols above them, their sharp legs clicking against metal floors. Each time, they would stop and hold their breath until the sounds faded away. Finally, they found what they were looking for: a hidden bunker that the miners had built long ago for emergencies. It was deep underground, far from the main colony, and it had thick walls that blocked all signals. The perfect place to hide. Jake pushed open the heavy door and stepped inside. What he saw made his heart jump with hope. There were people. About 30 humans were living in the bunker, sleeping on the floor, eating food from storage containers. When they saw Jake and Amy, they all stood up, their eyes wide with surprise and fear. A woman stepped forward. Jake recognized her immediately. It was Lieutenant Megan Cole. She had survived. "Jake?" Megan said, her voice shaking. "Is that really you?" Jake nodded. "It is me." Megan ran to him and hugged him tight. Tears were running down her face. "They said you were dead." The Queen broadcasted across the whole system. She showed everyone the platform falling. She said no human could survive. She was wrong, Jake said. Megan stepped back and looked at him. She saw the burns on his face. She saw the metal arm where his real arm used to be. She saw the scars and the pain in his eyes. But she also saw something else. She saw strength. "What happened to you?" she asked. Jake told her everything. The fall, the tunnels. Amy saving his life. The weeks of darkness and pain. When he finished, the whole bunker was silent. Everyone was looking at him like he was something more than human. A young man stepped forward. His name was Danny Park, and he had been the communications officer at the outpost. "Sergeant, we thought we were alone. We thought everyone else was dead or captured." "How many escaped?" Jake asked. "Just us," Megan said. "The shuttles I sent up made it to safety, but they could not come back. The Vectari have too many ships around the planet. No one can get in or out." Jake looked around at the survivors. They were scared and tired. They had been hiding for weeks, waiting for help that was not coming. But they were alive, and that meant there was still hope. "What are the Vectari doing on the surface?" he asked. Danny answered. "They have taken over the whole outpost. They are using it as a base to attack other human colonies nearby. Every few days, their ships leave and come back with prisoners or supplies." "And the Queen? She is still here," Danny said. "Her ship is in orbit. She seems to be waiting for something." Jake nodded slowly. His mind was already working on a plan. "She thinks she has won. She thinks we are all dead or running. That is her mistake." Megan looked at him with worried eyes. "Jake, what are you thinking?" "I am thinking that we have 30 people, some old weapons, and nothing to lose. The Vectari do not know we are here. They are not looking for us. That gives us an advantage." "An advantage?" one of the survivors said. He was an older man with gray hair. "They have an army. They have ships. They have the Queen herself. What can we possibly do against all that?" Jake turned to face him. "We can hurt them. We can slow them down. We can make them afraid." The old man shook his head. "You are crazy." "Maybe," Jake said. "But I am also the man who fell into a pit of fire and walked out alive. And I am telling you, we are not going to sit here and wait to die. We are going to fight." Over the next few weeks, Jake trained the survivors. Most of them were not soldiers. They were miners, engineers, cooks, and teachers. But Jake did not care. He taught them how to shoot. He taught them how to move without being seen. He taught them how to set traps and make bombs from mining supplies. Amy became his second in command. She knew the tunnels better than anyone, and she knew how to build things that could hurt the enemy. Together, they planned their first attack. The target was a Vectari supply convoy. Every 3 days, ground vehicles carried food and weapons from the main base to smaller outposts around the colony. The road they used passed through a narrow valley, the perfect place for an ambush. Jake led a team of 10 fighters to the valley. They hid behind rocks and waited. When the convoy appeared, they attacked with everything they had. The battle was short and violent. The Vectari were not expecting any resistance. By the time they realized what was happening, half of them were already dead. The rest tried to fight back, but Jake's team was faster and smarter. They hit hard, took what they needed, and disappeared into the tunnels before reinforcements could arrive. They captured weapons, food, and medicine. But more than that, they captured something else. Hope. News of the attack spread quickly among the survivors. For the first time since the invasion, people were smiling. They were talking about fighting back. They were talking about winning. Jake did not let them rest. He planned more attacks. A fuel depot. A communications tower. A patrol that got too close to the bunker. Each time, his team struck fast and vanished into the darkness. The Vectari commanders were confused. They sent more patrols to find the attackers, but the patrols kept disappearing. They increased security around their bases, but the attacks kept coming. They reported to Queen Zythara that something strange was happening on the planet. The Queen listened to their reports with growing anger. "How can a handful of humans cause so much trouble?" she demanded. "Find them and destroy them." One commander was brave enough to speak. "Your Majesty, some of the prisoners say there is a human leading the resistance. A soldier. They say he has burns on his face and a metal arm." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "That is impossible. I watched that soldier die." "Yes, Your Majesty, but the stories persist." Queen Zythara turned away and looked out the window at the planet below. For the first time since the invasion, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Doubt. Back in the bunker, Jake was preparing for the biggest mission yet. They were going to attack the main Vectari base itself. It was dangerous. It was probably suicide. But it was necessary. Megan stood beside him, looking at the map they had drawn on the wall. "Are you sure about this?" Jake nodded. "The Vectari think they are safe. They think we are just a small group of survivors, making noise. They do not know what is coming." "Chain quarter." "No, Mentine. And what is coming?" Jake looked at her with eyes full of fire. "A message. That humans do not give up. That we do not surrender. That no matter what they do to us, we will keep fighting until our last breath." Megan smiled. "You really believe we can win this?" Jake shook his head. "I do not know if we can win, but I know we can hurt them. And sometimes, that is enough." Danny Park had not slept in 3 days. He sat in a small room in the bunker, surrounded by broken machines and tangled wires. His eyes were red and tired, but his hands kept moving, connecting cables and adjusting frequencies. For weeks, he had been trying to send a signal through the Vectari jamming field. It seemed impossible. The alien technology was too strong. Every time he thought he found a way through, the signal was blocked. But Danny did not give up. He remembered what Jake had told him. Humans do not stop. Humans do not surrender. Humans keep fighting until the end. It was late at night when he finally found it. A small gap in the jamming field, lasting only a few seconds every hour. Not enough time to send a long message, but enough to send a short one. Danny typed as fast as he could. "This is Outpost Kira. Survivors present. Requesting immediate assistance. Coordinates attached." He pressed send and watched the screen. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, just before the gap closed, a response appeared. "Message received. Steadfast standing by. Hold position." Danny stared at the screen. His hands were shaking. Then, he jumped up and ran out of the room, shouting at the top of his voice. "Jake! Jake! We got through!" Jake was in the main hall, planning the next attack with Amy and Megan. When he heard Danny's voice, he turned around. "What happened?" "The signal," Danny said, breathing hard. "Someone received it. A ship called the Steadfast. They are out there." Jake felt his heart beating faster. The Steadfast was an Earth defense ship. He had heard of it before the attack. It was supposed to be patrolling this sector, but when the Vectari invaded, everyone assumed it was destroyed. "Are you sure?" Megan asked. "It could be a trap. The Vectari might be trying to find our location." Danny shook his head. "I used the old Earth defense codes, the ones the Vectari do not know. The response used the same codes. It is real. 7. This one Alder 1800s. It is real." Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he made a decision. "Danny, can you send another message?" "Only during the gaps. One short message per hour. That is enough. Tell them we need to coordinate an attack. We will hit the ground. They will hit from space. Together, we can break the Vectari hold on this planet. Danny nodded and ran back to his room. Over the next several hours, he exchanged messages with the Steadfast. The ship was hiding in an asteroid field 2 days away, commanded by Captain Chris Bennett. It had taken heavy damage during the invasion, but had repaired itself enough to fight. Captain Bennett was surprised to learn that there were survivors on the planet. He was even more surprised to learn that they had been attacking Vectari forces for weeks. But he was ready to help. We have enough firepower for one big attack, he sent. If you can take down the shield generators, we can destroy their command center from orbit. Jake read the message and smiled. Tell him we will handle the shields. He just needs to be ready when we give the signal. Jake. The plan was simple but dangerous. The Vectari had 3 shield generators protecting their main base. As long as those shields were active, no attack from space could get through. Jake's team would have to sneak into the base, destroy the generators, and hold their position long enough for the Steadfast to strike. It would require perfect timing. One mistake would mean death for everyone. Jake gathered all the survivors in the main hall. They stood before him, their faces serious and afraid. They knew what was coming. They knew that not all of them would survive. I am not going to lie to you, Jake said. This mission is the most dangerous thing we have ever done. Many of us will not come back. If anyone wants to stay behind, I understand. No one will judge you. No one moved. No one spoke. They all stood there, looking at Jake with determination in their eyes. Amy stepped forward. We did not survive this long, just to hide in a hole. We are with you, Jake. All of us. The others nodded in agreement. Some of them had tears in their eyes, but none of them stepped back. Jake looked at them, and for a moment, he could not speak. These were ordinary people. Miners and engineers. Cooks and teachers. A few weeks ago, they did not know how to hold a weapon. Now they were ready to fight an alien army. This, Jake thought, is what it means to be human. The night before the attack, Jake sat alone in a small room. He held a recording device in his hand. He had something he needed to say. This message is for my sister, Lucy, he began. His voice was quiet and tired. I do not know if you will ever hear this. I do not know if I will survive tomorrow. But I want you to know some things. He paused, looking for the right words. I was scared when I fell into that pit. I thought I was going to die. But I did not. And every day since then, I have asked myself why. Why did I survive when so many others did not? He took a deep breath. I think I know the answer now. I survived because I had to. Because there were people who needed help. Because there was still work to do. That is what being human means. Lucy. It means getting back up, no matter how many times you fall. It means fighting for what is right, even when it seems impossible. Right. Tears were running down his face, but he did not wipe them away. If I do not come back, do not be sad for me. Be proud. Be proud that your brother fought until the end. Be proud that he never gave up. And most of all, be proud that he was human. He turned off the recorder and sat in silence. Outside, he could hear the others preparing for the mission, checking weapons, saying goodbye to friends, making peace with what was coming. Megan found him an hour later. She sat down beside him without saying anything. Are you ready? She finally asked. Jake looked at her. No, but I am going anyway. Megan nodded. That is the only answer I expected. They sat together in the quiet, waiting for dawn, waiting for the battle that would decide everything, waiting for the chance to show Queen Zithara that she had made the biggest mistake of her life. The sun rose slowly over the horizon. Jake stood up and grabbed his weapon. His metal arm caught the light, shining like silver. "Let us go," he said. "It is time to remind the Vectari what humans are made of." The team moved out into the tunnels, heading toward the surface. Above them, somewhere in the stars, the Steadfast was waiting, and far above that, Queen Zithara sat on her throne, not knowing that her world was about to change forever. The attack began at first light. Jake led his team through the tunnels that only he and Amy knew about. These were the deepest passages, forgotten by everyone except the old miners who had dug them decades ago. They moved in silence, their footsteps soft against the stone floor. Every person knew their job. Every person knew the risks. There was no room for mistakes. The first shield generator was in a building near the east side of the base. Jake sent Amy and 5 others to destroy it. The second generator was underground, protected by heavy doors and Vectari guards. Megan and her team would handle that one. Jake himself would take the third generator, which was inside the main command center, where Queen Zithara directed her forces. "Remember," Jake whispered before they split up. They nodded and disappeared into the darkness. Jake and his team reached the command center through an old ventilation shaft. They came out in a storage room filled with alien supplies. Through the door, they could hear Vectari voices, their strange clicking language filling the air. Danny was with Jake. He looked nervous, but his hands were steady on his weapon. "How many guards do you think are out there?" Too many," Jake said. "But that is not going to stop us." They waited for the signal. It came as a distant explosion from the east. Amy had destroyed the first generator. Then came the second explosion, this one shaking the ground beneath them. Megan had done her job. The Vectari in the command center started shouting in confusion. Alarms began to ring. Officers ran in every direction, trying to understand what was happening. Jake kicked open the door. Now, his team poured into the command center, weapons firing. The Vectari were caught by surprise. Many of them fell before they could even raise their weapons. But more came quickly, pouring out of doors and hallways. The fighting was brutal. Jake's metal arm crushed a Vectari skull. His rifle cut down enemies left and right. Beside him, Danny fought with a courage that Jake had not expected from the quiet communications officer. But the Vectari were many, and Jake's team was small. One by one, his people started to fall. A young woman named Kate was hit by acid and died in seconds. A man named Tony was torn apart by Vectari claws. And Danny, brave Danny who had made contact with the Steadfast, was shot while holding a doorway so the others could move forward. "Go!" Danny shouted as he fell. "Finish the mission." Jake wanted to stop. He wanted to help his friend. But there was no time. He ran past Danny's body, pushing deeper into the command center. The third shield generator was in the central chamber. When Jake finally reached it, only he and 2 others remained. They were bleeding, tired, and almost out of ammunition, but the generator was right in front of them. "Cover me!" Jake shouted. He ran toward the machine while his teammates fired at the Vectari guards. Bullets and acid flew past him. One shot hit his shoulder. But he did not stop. He reached the generator and ripped open its control panel. His metal arm tore through wires and circuits. Sparks flew everywhere. The machine screamed and started to shake. Then it exploded. The blast threw Jake across the room. When he opened his eyes, he saw the sky through a hole in the ceiling. The shields were down. The planet was open. Far above, a streak of light cut through the atmosphere. The Steadfast had begun its attack. Explosions rocked the base as missiles rained down from space. Vectari ships tried to flee, but the human warship was faster and more accurate. One by one, the alien vessels were destroyed. Jake stood up slowly. His body was broken, but he was still alive. He looked around and saw that his teammates were dead. He was alone. But not for long. The doors of the chamber opened, and Queen Zethara walked in. Her golden armor was scratched and dirty. Her red eyes burned with rage. Behind her came a dozen of her best warriors. She saw Jake standing amid the destruction. She saw his burned face, his metal arm, his uniform covered in blood. She saw the soldier she had watched fall into fire. For a moment, she could not speak. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Then she screamed, You were supposed to be dead." Jake raised his weapon. It was almost empty, but he did not care. "Sorry to disappoint you." The queen stepped closer, her claws clicking against the floor. "I watched you fall. I saw your body disappear into the flames. No creature could survive that. Humans are not like other creatures," Jake said. "We do not know when to die." Zethara hissed, a sound full of hate and fear. "You are one soldier. One broken, burned, worthless human. You cannot stop me. You cannot stop my empire." "Maybe not," Jake said. "But I can hurt you. And that is enough. Armener uf darg." Quote, he fired his last bullets at the queen. Most of them bounced off her armor, but one found a gap and hit her in the side. She screamed in pain and fell backward. Her warriors rushed forward to protect her. Jake was out of ammunition, but he did not run. He charged at them with his metal fist, fighting with everything he had left. They overwhelmed him quickly. He fell to the ground, covered in wounds. But he did not stop fighting. He kept swinging, kept biting, kept struggling. A Vektari warrior raised his claw to deliver the final blow. Then the ceiling exploded. Human soldiers dropped down from above, firing as they fell. It was a rescue team from the Steadfast. Captain Chris Bennett had sent his best to save whoever was left. The Vektari warriors were quickly killed. Queen Zethara tried to escape, but Megan Cole was waiting at the door. She had survived the battle for the second generator and had fought her way to the command center. "Going somewhere?" Megan said, pointing her weapon at the queen's head. Amy appeared beside her. Together, they forced the queen to her knees. Jake stood up slowly, helped by one of the rescue soldiers. He walked toward Zethara and looked down at her. She was crying. Not from pain, but from shock. She had never imagined that this could happen. She had never believed that humans could defeat her. "You called us weak," Jake said quietly. "You called us insects. You said we did not deserve to live in your galaxy." Zethara looked up at him with fear in her eyes. "What are you going to do to me?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the battle was ending. Vektari ships were fleeing into space. Human soldiers were securing the base. The colony was being reclaimed. "I am going to let you live," Jake finally said. "I am going to send you back to your empire so you can tell them what happened here. Tell them that a handful of humans, hiding in tunnels, eating scraps. Tell them that you, the great Queen Zethara, were brought to your knees by a soldier you thought was dead." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "And tell them that if they ever come for humanity again, we will be waiting. And we will never stop fighting." The Steadfast landed an hour later. Jake stood on the ruined platform where he had fallen weeks ago. The same place where Zethara had declared him dead. Now, human ships filled the sky. Survivors were coming out of hiding. The colony was being reborn. Megan stood beside him, watching the ships arrive. "What will you do now?" Jake thought about the question. He thought about his sister. He thought about Earth. He thought about all the people who had died so that this moment could happen. "The war is not over," he said. "The Vektari will come back. They will bring bigger armies and stronger weapons. And when they do, I will be there to meet them." He looked at his metal arm, scarred and dented from the battle. Then he looked at the sky, full of stars and possibilities. "Because that is what humans do," he said. "We fight, we fall, and we get back up again." Megan smiled and put a hand on his shoulder. "Then I guess we have work to do." Jake nodded. The sun was rising over the colony. painting the sky in shades of gold and red. A new day was beginning, and somewhere among the stars, the Vektari Empire was learning a lesson they would never forget. Humans do not stay down, humans do not give up, and humans will never, ever be easy to kill.